I remember when each one of my children were born, they would cry or become fussy, and I would easily panic about what to do. I felt I had to fix every little problem that I didn't know anything about and had to turn for answers on my own. My children's pediatrician became my best friend and proudly told the nurse not to answer the phone every time I was calling. Today we're going to get to some basic information, but critical questions answered for parents with infants. With me on the show today is Dr. Susan Markel, a board-certified pediatrician and author of the book, What Your Pediatrician Doesn't Know Can Hurt Your Child. Welcome to the show, Dr. Markel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Bill.
So, very catchy title, interesting, and imagine when parents hear about your book, they're very intrigued. So tell me a little bit about how you went about creating this book, writing the book.
I will say that the title does sound a little bit provocative, and I'm not the one that chose the title. The book itself is not in any way confrontational, but the publisher thought that the book needed a title that when parents were looking through Barnes & Noble and flipping through all the books, that would catch somebody's attention and therefore decide to take a better look at it. Basically, the issue for me is that pediatricians are trained, myself included, to treat disease, to use medications, to use antibiotics. And in general, we have a pharmaceutical attitude. Pediatricians are not trained in health or nutrition. So very often, if parents know about how to maintain their children's health, or if parents know anything about nutrition, they likely know more about these issues than their pediatrician does, because these things are absolutely not taught in medical school. And for me, I in fact am self-taught, because I was noticing in my practice that parents had developed what I call a learned helplessness. Doctor, I don't know what to do because my child coughed. I don't know what to do, my child has a fever. And the parents were not able to just take charge and understand that a lot of these processes are just natural parts of being a child. Children get sick, children cough, children get fevers, and usually if we let nature take its course, these things will get better on their own. And so many times when I had my practice, I felt like going into the waiting room and telling the parents to go home because there was nothing I really could do. But most doctors obviously don't tell the patients to go home, don't tell the parents to go home with the children. And at that point, once they're seeing the children, feel an obligation to do something, because the parents are saying do something, and the doctor feels like, well, the parent is here, I have to do something. And therefore, we start with this process of really over-treating, over-medicating, over-analyzing something that really should have been left alone in the first place.
You know, that's really interesting that you say that, because I'm a parent educator. So I work with parents all the time, and they come to me for, my child's doing this, what do I do about it? And so, like you, I find myself going, why can't the child do that?
Right.
You know, one time, a parent came to me one time and said, my daughter is barking like a dog. And I said, get out.
Yeah.
You know, and then she says, what do I do about it? And I said, why can't she bark like a dog? Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. And I remember, my children are in their 20s, and I remember it didn't seem too long ago that when they were infants and something would happen, and I would automatically get the fear in me. Oh my gosh, I've got to take care of this. And I was one of the parents calling or running to the doctor, because I think I was driven by fear. Fear that, I mean, you hear about you know, the different kinds of problems where babies die in the middle of the night and while sleeping, and I guess I was afraid of that. And we hear about you know, infants getting sick and then getting very seriously ill. So I think that's what's driving parents. So let me ask you a question: how much can we really trust the pediatrician?
I think that in general, pediatricians are beholden to insurance companies, beholden to drug companies that come and basically try to sell the drugs to the pediatricians. Pediatricians are beholden to the state government and the federal government that dictate certain ways of practice, certain ways of immunizing. And so pediatricians, in a sense, have divided loyalties. They have to be loyal to all of those that I just mentioned, but also be an advocate for each individual child, and sometimes there is a conflict there.
So how do you know, so that you don't become a parent like I was, and then yet you always trust whatever happens to your child to the powers of the universe or whatever? Where's the balance? How do you create the balance?
The balance is that for parents to learn to trust their instincts and to understand that nature generally takes its course and children get better. Now, I worked today as a pediatrician in a pediatric office, and I was examining an 8-year-old girl that basically looked fine. She had a little bit of a sore throat. She said her neck was hurting a little bit. But we had a very nice conversation, and the mother said to me, "But how do I know that she doesn't have meningitis?" And I said, "Well, look at her." But the mother, as you said, the fear is the great motivator. And if the medical profession does and has created fear on the part of parents from the very beginning, from the time the baby is born in the hospital, your child has to get this hepatitis B injection. Your child has to get the vitamin K shot. Your child is jaundiced and has to go into bilirubin lights. The parents are afraid.
So, okay. It's important for parents to be educated themselves, to learn as much as they can,
Exactly.
to trust that we're alive in this world and to trust nature as much as we can. Maybe to take what your pediatrician says with a grain of salt, maybe not do everything, don't run to them all the time, but especially use that person as a resource if things get tough.
Definitely.
But I want to ask you
yeah.
a couple of quick questions. We've
Yeah.
only got a couple of minutes left, but I do want to ask you a couple of quick questions. Breastfeeding or not?
We're humans, and human milk is made for human babies. Cow's milk is made for calves. Horse's milk for horses. Dog's milk for dogs. So you get the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Another quick question. Educational TVs and videos. What's the deal? In the first 12 to 18 months, does it work? Is it really important? What do you think?
It's actually quite harmful. Many studies have shown that children sitting in front of a box, it's quite detrimental because they're not interacting, they're not socializing, they're not touching, they're not getting physical interaction with the environment. They're just sitting there, and children, they have quite a bit of language delay. And in fact, the Walt Disney Company paid out a lot of money in lawsuits. They're the ones that make the Baby Einstein video. They actually paid out a lot of money to parents that were suing Walt Disney Company because their children weren't smarter after watching it.
So, last question. When should you really go see the physician? When should you bring your child to the pediatrician?
If your child is really not acting right, if your child really seems sick, and these are things that parents have instincts to know, there's something wrong here. But if a child has 104 fever but is saying, "Mommy, I want more Cheerios," that's not a time that you have to be calling the doctor. A child with 101 fever that's lying on the sofa and is not responding, well, obviously that's the difference.
Okay, good. All right, so this is basic information we need. Sounds like the book provides a lot of good, valuable resources for parents, but I've got more questions for you. Is discipline necessary for an infant, and if so, what does it look like? Now, coming up, you're going to learn about attachment parenting and healthier ways of handling tantrums. Stay with us. We'll be right back.